Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the Live to 110 podcast. My name is Wendy Myers. I'm going to be your host today, and we're going to be interviewing Maria Emmerich. She's a friend of mine I met about 5 years ago on Jimmy Moore's Livin' La Vida Low Carb Cruise, and I learned a lot. I got an earful there about the ketogenic diet and the benefits of eating a low carbohydrate diet. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today are the benefits of that and also her book, The 30-Day Ketogenic Cleanse. I got a copy of that. It's a beautiful book, and I think it's a great way to start experimenting to see if the ketogenic diet can work for you and if it can give you some benefits to your health. We're also going to talk about if keto supplements are good to take or not, and how to improve your mitochondrial function. Lots of really good tips and tricks in this podcast. But before we get into the show, we have to do the disclaimer. Please keep in mind that this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or health condition and is not a substitute for professional medical advice. Please keep in mind this show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult your healthcare practitioner before engaging in anything that we suggest today on the show. I'm so thrilled that my book is finally out on Amazon. It's called Limitless Energy: How to Detox Toxic Metals to End Exhaustion and Chronic Fatigue. I know so many of you out there are exhausted, or you're just feeling tired when you wake up in the morning and you feel drawn to drinking tea or coffee, or even drinking coffee all day long. And some people are even taking very, very strong stimulants just to stay awake or push through college or push through work. And they end up causing many health issues down the road. So I want to teach you how to help your body naturally produce the energy that it's capable of producing. And in order to do that, you have to detox the toxic metals that interfere in your mitochondria's ability to produce energy. Your mitochondria make your body's energy. And if you have metals like arsenic, aluminum, tin, thallium, mercury, lead in your body, which most of us do, we have some level of these metals in our body, you're not going to be able to produce the energy that you're capable of. And so it's very, very simple. And so you just need to put some time into educating yourself about detoxification. I give you lots of simple tips in this book on how to detox these metal poisons. So please go pick it up on Amazon. Limitless Energy: How to Detox the Toxic Metals to End Exhaustion and Chronic Fatigue. So now for our guest, Maria Emmerich. She is a wellness expert in nutrition and exercise physiology, and she shares a passion for helping others reach their goals of optimum health. She struggled with her weight throughout childhood and decided that enough was enough. She decided to study health and wellness so she could help others stop wasting their time being discouraged with their outward appearance and not feeling their best mentally. Maria understands the connection between food and how it makes us feel on the inside and out. She's an international best-selling author of the Ketogenic Cookbook. She also authored 8 other books, including several cookbooks and 3 nutritional guidebooks, including Secrets to a Healthy Metabolism, which includes a foreword by New York Times #1 best-selling author of Wheat Belly, Dr. William Davis. And one of her books, Keto Adapted, includes a foreword by Dr. David Perlmutter, author of Grain Brain, another New York Times best-selling book. And her blog includes a unique combination of innovative recipes using alternative ingredients to less healthy options and easy to understand explanations of why these options are better for our health. She includes with each recipe a snippet of information about different ailments and problems with our health that can be healed with proper nutrition. She has a passion for helping others start a healthier lifestyle, and weight loss is often a side effect of helping treat any number of problems, including diabetes, cholesterol issues, alopecia, Hashimoto's, autoimmune diseases, and so much more. You can learn more about Maria at mindbodyhealth.com. Maria, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, Wendy, it is an honor to be here again. Thank you again.
Yeah, so why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about you and why you're doing the work that you're doing?
Well, I have been a ketogenic nutritionist for quite some time now, about a decade, and just uh, I was blessed to have someone mention, you should just write down your recipes and make them into a cookbook, and you could sell them to help raise money for your adoption. And so I recently got a copy of that first cookbook. It looked like a church basement type cookbook, where I just put the recipes together, and um, then I was blessed to be asked by Jimmy to write a cookbook with him, and it's just gone gangbusters. And the cleanse book came out, and it's doing great. It's going to be in Costco's in a couple weeks, and that's just that's how I roll. I love to be in the kitchen. I wish I could be in the kitchen every day and cook and write recipes, but the majority of times I'm with clients via Skype or phone or something like that.
So you have a new book out called The 30-Day Ketogenic Cleanse. And this book really, really appealed to me because I am trying myself to go completely grain-free, and I've been doing lots of juicing and eating lots of keto meals, keto-inspired meals. And so for me, I felt like it just kind of was like the thing that I was looking for.
Yeah.
When you sent it to me in the mail, and my business partner, she definitely no, she's diabetic and she needs to go on a 30-day ketogenic cleanse. So I gave the book to her and said, please do this. So tell us about your book.
Well, I absolutely love that book. We've been having really great feedback. I think that the majority of people that I consult with are not doing keto like I personally do. A lot of times people have loads of dairy in their meals and nuts and nut flours. And this book is completely dairy free. There's not even ghee allowed. There's no nuts. There's no nut flours. Which, a lot of people on keto are snacking on like nuts and cream cheese or something like that. And I just wanted people to be really, I want them to have the success and feel as good as they could, because um, you mentioned in my personal bio in the beginning that I grew up overweight and unhealthy and depressed, and I don't want people to waste their time being like that. I want them to feel awesome. And, I won't tell you how old I am, but I feel better than I did in my 20s, like it's just, I feel like I wasted a lot of time being sick and going to the doctor, and they never asked about my diet. They just said, you want to go on this antidepressant, and, food has so much to do with it. And so the cleanse, I just dive into, how to heal the mitochondria. I know that's something that you're interested in, through grounding and light and cold therapy and all of these things that we're so concerned about the food. I wanted people to understand that there's a whole nother connection to what we're doing that's pretty much backwards of what society tells us to do, that we can do, that's free and it's awesome for our mitochondria health.
So what are some of your tips that you can give us on how to do a 30-day ketogenic cleanse? Like, what does that look like?
Well, the cleanse book, I guess I it's hard. It was hard for me to pick a name. I'll just say that. But it's a cleanse because, again, I eliminate dairy and nuts and, a lot of these food allergens that I see. But then also getting into, so the 30-day cleanse is about, getting rid of, all sweeteners. It's Whole30 approved, going extremely ketogenic, but it doesn't feel like it. You're eating awesome, like breakfast chili and ramen and all of this really tasty stuff that's really not that difficult to make. But then little steps on, when you wake up, let's get our circadian rhythm in balance, and, how to get the light therapy, and then let's do some cold therapy, how to incorporate exercise, when to do that, what type, how to work out with your cortisol levels. So you could take it as far as you want to. And my goal is that you don't have to be overwhelmed when you read this. Some people do get a little overwhelmed, but my goal is for you to take one thing and change it this week. And then once you accomplish that goal, try to add in another thing. I was all about baby steps. I don't like to get overwhelmed. In college, when I'd see a syllabus, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I have to do all this in, so many months. And so I can understand how some people feel overwhelmed, but my goal is for you to just take something from the book and roll with it for the week. And then once that's checked off your list, add another one to it.
Yeah, because I mean, Rome was not built in a day. Okay. And I never thought in a million years I'd be eating as healthy as I do now and really, really enjoying it. Like a lot of people think, oh, I got to do a 30-day diet or 30-day cleanse and kind of dreading it because they're not going
Yeah.
to be able to have the foods that they typically have been eating, kind of naughty foods or what have you. But you just slowly over time, you find it's easier and easier and easier to eat a keto type diet or a paleo type diet or whatever. It's incorporating more vegetables into your diet if that's what you need to focus on. And
Yeah.
so I try to, just like you, encourage people that, you just one day at a time. You don't need to feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, I was a junk foodaholic. I mean, I talk about my, food addiction when I was a kid, and I lived on, fruity pebbles for breakfast and then cocoa pebbles for dinner, and it was awful. And that's why I don't judge anybody, because I was there myself, and I don't like it when someone says, I'll never be able to do this, or my husband never will do it with me, because I grew up on that type of a diet. I worked at a coffee shop where I made the muffins, and I got to take the extras home at night all throughout high school and college, and living off of mochas. And now I don't believe in coffee whatsoever. And, just never say never. We brewed our own beer. We brewed our own wine. Like, we're a totally different, my husband and I, we're totally different. And, yeah, never say never, because little baby steps. I would remember how I would feel after a night of having a piece of chocolate cake, or, the wine or whatever. And I didn't feel like I knew I could. I love mornings. I love to wake up, and I love to run in the morning and get outside. Even in the wintertime, I run outside to get that cold therapy on. But I just feel that it's really important to take note of how your body, because you can really, the way you fuel it is how you feel.
Yeah, I mean, when I eat a piece of chocolate cake, I feel like crap. And I used to eat that and think, "Oh, this is so good," and I enjoyed it. And I was just having that little party in my mouth
Yeah,
and
right.
whatnot. But over time, you begin to make those associations. This is going to make me feel terrible, and
Yeah.
an hour later, I'm gonna have a crash and brain fog and fatigue. I want to fall asleep at my desk, and so you just have to try to disconnect from that pleasure you're getting for 5 seconds.
I was gonna say that
Yeah.
5 minutes of party in your mouth,
Yeah.
you know, you could have days worth of, whether it be fibromyalgia or whatever type of pain you have, or just, your gut pain or whatever it is. But yeah.
Yeah. So talk about, you talk about mitochondria in the book and healing our mitochondria. How do you do that doing a ketogenic type diet? So what's involved with that?
Well, with the mitochondria is it's all made up. Every cell in your body has a mitochondria, and the primary part of your mitochondria is all water. It's about 99% water, and that water can be positively charged or negatively charged. And we want it to be negatively charged. However, to do that, we need to, ground to the earth and get it cold. And, you hear about cryotherapy,
Yes.
where people go to hospitals and stuff. You can do that at home. We do that all the time. We do ice baths, and you just get your body cold. We're never in that environment where we are forcing our bodies to get cold or get hot. We're in an environment where we have heaters on, or we have air conditioners on. And I talked to a doctor who he wrote a book about hiking Mount Kilimanjaro naked. It was more the idea that he made his body get cold, and how it's helping heal Crohn's and colitis. And we're never making our body work to make it warmer. So drinking ice cold water, and along with that, a lot of it, because again, 99% of your cells are water. So we need to keep filtering that and making sure that we're getting good quality water. And what type of water you're drinking is really important. But I mentioned grounding to the earth, because the earth has a magnetic pole on it but nobody steps onto the ground barefoot. It's finally nice enough. I mean, I live in Wisconsin. It's finally nice enough to walk outside, and we were playing catch with our bare feet. And but if you think about it, most people are jumping into their cars or driving to work, and then they sit at their desk, and they drive home. They're never actually touching the earth with their feet. And that gets into a little bit deeper conversation of you know people are so concerned about what should I say, the alkalinity of their body. And in reality, that's very hard to change unless you're very sick. It's more about getting that negative charge on those cells. And you can
Yes.
get like grounding mats and for your bed, or we have one underneath our desk. Because that hooks up to your all your houses need to be grounded to the earth, so that gets hooked up, and then you're grounded to the earth if you're touching that barefoot. So you're getting a little bit of a magnetic charge going on there. But those are just a few of the ways. I get a little bit into easy water, which is sounds like a biology book, but it's people are so concerned about what they're putting in their mouths, but again, like the whole mitochondria of like what you're putting on your skin is really important. And thanks to you, that was something that I never even thought about. So here I was slathering on like Jergens natural glow because I like that natural tan look, and realizing I was just putting toxins and obesogens all over my body. And again, thanks to you for bringing that to my attention, that is such a huge part of, now we just use coconut oil for lotions, and it saved us a ton of money
Yeah.
too, because all of that, you never have to go to Target anymore, because I never, everything there, it's just stuff I don't want to put on my skin.
Yeah, well, I had spoken on Jimmy Moore's Live and La Vida Low Carb Cruise, and it was like the first time I had spoken, and that's when I met
So good.
you. And I talked about obesogens, everything I'm doing today, and still trying to get that message out to people that, you want to be thinking about the food and the water and the products you put on your body because they have toxins in them. So you just gotta remove these obvious sources of toxins that you're putting in your body.
Yes,
Um,
but it was so eye-opening to me, because every commercial you hear tells you the opposite, like the soaps and the lotions and the shampoos. And I was like, oh my gosh, I really need to just do a total overhaul. And just like I cleaned out my pantry, I cleaned out my bathroom pantry after you, and I'm forever grateful.
Oh, good. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, it's hard to detox your beauty products because everyone has their favorite things and they have really nice textures and they lather up really nice, and people get used to all those chemicals that are producing those, like the feel of the lotion or the lather or whatnot. But you get used to it. You get used to a new normal with the natural stuff. And
Totally.
so let's talk about the 30-day ketogenic cleanse and how in that book you communicate to people how food is medicine and using food as medicine.
Yeah, I like to start out by telling people that I went to the doctor I had IBS, I had depression, and never once, I mentioned earlier, never once did she ask what my diet was. However, I think it was the same week my dog started losing patches of hair, and so I went to the vet. The very first question they asked me, what are you feeding her?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, exactly,
Mm-hmm.
and we went on a raw food, beef heart type diet, everything cleared up, and just realizing that I I can heal her, I can heal myself. And sure enough, it took some work, it takes some effort, but my husband lost his job, and I'm almost grateful because we couldn't afford to go out to eat anymore. We had to, really pinch our pennies. But that brought us to a point where our date nights were at home, and we started cooking really healthy at home, and basically healing ourselves because we couldn't afford to eat the stuff out, and just that totally changed our lives. And um, you know, a lot of times I think that the food we make at home is so much better anyway. So, but that's where the cleanse comes into play, like teaching people, what type of foods are, ketogenically, you know, perfect ratios. There's meal plans in there with all the breakdown, the nutrients, counting total carbs, not net carbs. So, I mean, I work with a lot of type 1 diabetics, and they're great to, work with because they're always testing their blood sugars, and knowing, how much protein is too much because they'll keep spiking throughout the night. And just learning about, okay, we need to moderate the protein a little bit here, and even the carbohydrates. Sometimes we need to go, even lower and limit some of those vegetables that can, stimulate or kick someone out of ketosis or whatever. So I guess that's how, the food plan. I mean, I'm a busy mom. We homeschool our kids too. And so I'm all about quick and easy. So I try to make those recipes as quick and easy. And the meal plans are designed so it teaches you how to store leftovers. So this will be, this is your meal today, and then it's going to be, meal 3 or of the week, or so it tries to lay it out real simplified for you to do that.
That's great. And so you mentioned that eating too much protein can cause spikes in people's blood sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And can you talk about how that works? I think a lot of people don't understand that, like eating too much protein powders. No, I'm not a big fan of protein powders, but eating those things that are very processed food or eating too much protein can do that. And why, a lot of people mistakenly think keto or paleo is like all protein, and it is if you make it that way, but that's not what's recommended.
Yeah, if you do a big old chicken breast and broccoli, that's a low carbohydrate meal, but it's not necessarily a ketogenic meal. So we all agree that sugar is inflammatory, right? We know that we need to limit that. So even complex carbohydrates, once they enter your bloodstream, they're broken down into simple sugars. Our body's quite simple at that. However, most people don't realize, like you said, is that too much protein, if you eat that in excess, that's going to turn into sugar because you can't store that. So anything in excess, it changes into basically, sugar in your body. Okay, so you can digest it. So this is very low carbohydrate, moderate protein, and then what's left? The naughty F word, fats, right? And so, it's a low carbohydrate, moderate protein, high fat approach to eating. And if you think about it, like the sheath of your cells are primarily made up of fat. And so for them to talk and communicate efficiently, you need to, have that sheath of the cells, filled with fat. And what's interesting is that we're seeing so much osteopenia and osteoporosis. The sheath of your bones are primarily made up of fat, and not just any fat. It's made up of saturated fat, the demonized fat that our doctors tell us to stay away from. Like I remember when I was a little kid, my mom had a coffee cup in her refrigerator, and it was like of this goop, like this lard, basically. That's what it was. But I was like, what is this? And I always wanted to throw it away when I'd clean out the fridge. She's like, no, don't throw that away. But nobody does that anymore. Nobody keeps their lard anymore. I mean, we do, but you don't see that very often because it's such a demonized fat. And when you're constantly running off of glucose, so if you are always eating sugar or, a lot of carbohydrates, you only have about 2 to 3 hours of energy stored up at any particular time. And so what it does is, if you think about it throughout the night when you're sleeping for 8 hours, hopefully 8 to 9, 10, it's going to steal from your lean muscle tissue or from your bones to produce glucose. And that's when we see a lot of osteopenia or muscle loss, is when someone's always eating a standard American diet of carbohydrates and sugar. However, if you are in ketosis, you'll be utilizing your fat stores to produce energy rather than, the glucose for energy. So.
And can you talk to us about how that is a rather natural state? Because our ancestors, cavemen or whatever you want to call them, I mean, they would go a day, 2 days at a time without eating, and they were eating primarily meat and vegetables. And so, can you talk about how our bodies are evolutionarily designed to eat in this fashion?
Yeah, a lot of people, when you bring up, intermittent fasting, they're like, I was told I need to eat every 2 to 3 hours. And it's like, that's such an unnatural state. Like, nobody stopped working in the fields or whatever they were doing, or stopped hunting their animals to like grab a snack of granola from their backpack when they're, out hunting and gathering. It's such an unnatural thing. And what's great about it is hunger is different on keto, where you will get hungry. However, it's not hangry like, when the blood sugar drops, because your blood sugar is staying nice and even. But if you look at things written by, whether it be Gandhi, I mean, even Benjamin Franklin, Jesus, they all talk about fasting and how fasting is such a natural state of, how to get into ketosis. What's interesting is the younger you are, so babies are in a ketogenic state within hours, a very short period of time. Kids, a bigger window, like 4 hours. And then as adults, the window has to be a little bit bigger. But babies are usually in ketosis if they're breastfed, because breast milk is it's made up of cholesterol and fats. But if they're formula fed, that's usually more of a sugar mixture. So that's different, but it is such a natural state. And it's just so freeing to be able to work. And if you think about, who am I thinking of? They would talk about how, Einstein and stuff, how amazing their work quality was when they were in a fasted state. And that was because they were in ketosis and their brain was just way better functioning. You talk about the brain fog with the sugar and stuff like that. So that's just where I'm just such a big advocate of, this way of eating. Even my kids are 6 and 7 and they eat 100% keto.
Oh, great. Yeah. And so, what do you think about the keto supplements? When there's a lot of marketing around these products for
Yeah.
people that are trying to lose weight or supplement ketones, like what is
Yeah.
the deal with that? What are these? Yes,
Uh,
no.
if you're trying to lose weight and you're taking ketones, you're going to be burning those ketones. You're not going to be burning the ketones from your fat stores. Does that make sense? If
Yes.
you keep flooding yourself with that, you're not going to be utilizing, you don't have to utilize your own body fat to make ketosis because you're using the supplement. There's a place for it. If I had cancer, I would take it. If my kids had epilepsy or, something like that, I would consider it. However, if it's for weight loss, there's no magic. I mean, you gotta do the work.
Yeah, and it sounds like a lot of people that are taking them are like young males that are working out and they're trying to get more energy, or maybe they're in a keto state, and seems to make sense for those guys, but not
I
for.
guess what I have a problem with is if sometimes they say, well, eat the darn muffin and just take this and you'll be in ketosis. You have high glucose and high ketones. This is not a good mixture. Don't do it. Like, it's just not, I don't think that it's a healthy way to live.
Sounds like a very good way to throw your body out of whack,
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you talk about in your book, it's a 30-day ketogenic cleanse, but you talk about how to create permanent change. And can you talk a little about that?
I called it the 30-day cleanse because I wanted people, we're all about short term. When we see 30 days, I've endured so much. I can do 30 days, after 30 days, I'm going to do whatever I want. However, what I've been finding, I started a Facebook group just for this book to, help encourage people. So what I'm finding is after the 30 days, people that thought they were going to quit and go back, they're never going back because they feel awesome and they love the food. I mean, there's chocolate waffles on this plan. Like, it's good stuff. So it doesn't have to feel like a deprivation diet. I've been on them. I don't want to eat cabbage soup for the rest of my life, you know. It didn't work for me either. You know, I was 50 pounds heavier trying to do the cabbage soup diet and, you know, always hungry. And so what my goal is, okay, do whatever you want. Do it for 30 days though. Give it a try. And I want, you know, so many people are just feeling so awesome and that they love the food, and there's so many options. There's like 170 recipes in there, and they just have so many options that they're like, well, I'm not done trying all of these yet, so I'm going to keep going. And that's what my goal was the whole time. However, you know, seeing a short-term goal is much easier for people to say, oh, I mean, I live in Wisconsin. This is the dairy state. Like, bring the cheese curds on, right? So to cut out dairy seemed impossible, but once you do and you feel awesome, a lot of people never want to go back. And some people can. Some people can handle dairy, and there's really good sources of, especially like the farmers around here that are doing organic, and I can pick up organic cream and their butter and all of that. But for many people, for about 50% of people, it's going to, even the lactose-free, it's going to cause them to get out of ketosis and not lose weight as efficiently as they'd like.
Yeah, because it does have lactase, I mean, or lactose rather. It's a sugar.
In
There's milk
casein, yeah.
sugars.
Yeah.
And so we talk a lot about the ketogenic diet. What are some of the benefits of doing the ketogenic diet? I know there's a ton of research. I've done several interviews with other people on, there's amazing research on how it can really help to put cancer in remission and many other benefits. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, I had the honor to speak in Medford, Wisconsin 2 weeks ago now. And part of the thing was we ran a contest, and they got to have 5 winners got to have lunch with me before my presentation. And this woman walked up to me. Her name was Lisa, and she shook my hand. She said, 5 years ago, I did a consult with you, and I was in a wheelchair. She's like, I have MS, and I was in a wheelchair, and I am now in remission. She had no tremors. She was walking. I would have never guessed. And she was crying, and I was crying. And so there's just one, I mean, MS. Again, like I was talking about, the sheath of the cells are primarily made up of fat. And then another woman, her son had epilepsy, and he was having 3 grand mal seizures a night. And now after working with her, she said, I'm so grateful because I finally sleep, because his seizures are more of a 20-minute session where he blanks out. He still registers that he's having a seizure, but it's nothing like the 3 grand mals he was having every single night. And so that, you know, for seizures and epilepsy, that was another benefit. Gosh, I mean, I could just go on and on. I worked with a woman who I lifted weights with. I love to lift weights, and her name was Kiki, and she was a professor, so I only usually saw her in the summer. And so we worked together, and then off she went to school and stuff. She had alopecia, and she had no hair on her head, and she always wore a bandana, and she showed me her head. I wanted to see what kind of alopecia was, because there's different types. And so we did an elimination diet and a, you know, high fat diet, ketogenic diet. I saw her 6 months later. She pulled her bandana off, and she said, I had my first haircut in 10 years.
Oh,
and
wow.
She started crying. And so we are a vain society. I mean, I'll admit that, you know, I didn't feel comfortable being, you know, fat. And that's why I started the ketogenic lifestyle. However, those stories where it's really impactful, where they're healing, they're getting better, you know, they're getting off medication, those are the ones that will stay with me forever.
Yeah. And so what are some of the benefits of doing the ketogenic diet? Like, so maybe someone who doesn't have a serious illness, what
Yeah.
are some of the benefits that they'll start feeling within those 30 days of doing a ketogenic cleanse?
Well, for one thing, the energy. I mean, this is on no caffeine. Woo! You know,
Yeah.
like you have like all this energy, you know, the mental focus. Again, like a lot of times weight loss is a benefit. However, you can gain weight on a ketogenic diet. I see it all the time. I mean, my kids, they're growing and they were actually underweight. They're from Ethiopia. They were under the growth charts and now they're on the growth charts. So, that's just one of the, one benefit. Nutrient density, really getting all of those nutrients in there is, again, like I think that we're all fighting the good fight where we're trying to get people off of processed foods and back into the kitchen and cooking good food, whether it be paleo or keto or whatever you're doing, getting rid of those boxes of stuff from the grocery store, it's going to be really important. But I was such a sugar addict that I have PCOS, which affects fertility. I now have, I have my children now, so I'm happy, but it has helped heal that. So if you're dealing with fertility or anything like that, helping a lot of people that way with getting your hormones balanced, because cholesterol helps make healthy hormones. And little did I know that, I was eating egg whites, from the carton, that gross stuff years ago.
Ugh.
Thinking, I know, like, who gets the yolks from those? I want to know that,
Yeah.
the cholesterol from that's what's going to make your healthy hormones, and how important that is, that most of us, and I myself, was lacking, scared of red meats and all of that.
Yeah, I listened to the American Heart Association. I didn't eat red meat for about 20 years. And then I paid for that. I had a zinc deficiency and low testosterone. You have to have zinc to make testosterone. That's in red meat, and the cholesterol to make the hormones. And I think a lot of people, it's really done a grave disservice to them, telling them to avoid red meat when it's incredibly nutritious and has so many nutrients that we need that we can't get in white meat.
I know. And now here we get a half a cow from the farmer next door, and that's how we roll.
Yeah, so let's talk about how important is movement and exercise for mitochondrial health and just health in general. And you give some tips in your book, The 30-Day Ketogenic Cleanse. So what do you talk about in regards to movement and exercise in the book?
Well, I was succumbed to the idea of, exercise calories in, calories out, exercise more, you'll lose weight. However, I was running marathons and gaining weight. And even to this day, when I start kicking up my training, if I do start training for marathons or whatever it is, I will gain weight. And realizing and studying the whole cortisol response, I was doing a lot of 2-a-day runs where I'd run in the afternoon. And that's when your cortisol should be coming down and lowering. And here I was elevating it. And so I talk a lot about exercise timing and how cortisol is naturally highest in the morning. And so that's when you'd want to utilize, working out with that. However, exercise is more about getting your mitochondria healthy and having more mitochondria. So I know even a lot of people talk about how those really long distance running has had a lot of detrimental side effects. However, one thing it does do is it makes a lot of mitochondria. So does strength training and things like that. So it's more about increasing the mitochondria. The reason why that's more important is because you oxidize fat in the mitochondria. So the more mitochondria you have, that fat oxidation is going to take place. If your ferritin is good, you talked about not eating red meat and most likely being low in iron and stuff. You're probably not getting the oxygen to the mitochondria. So that's a big connection too. But so exercise, again, how to work out with your cortisol levels, how to, get the mitochondria, what types of exercise to increase the mitochondria, but then also talking about yoga and how that is a whole mind-body connection. I used to work at Anderson Windows, and I would teach yoga over the lunch hour there, and how it was neat to hear the testimonies, how, it gave them a whole nother mind-body sense of, how they feel, and a time to reflect on even the foods that they're eating, how it made them feel too. So like a whole mind body connection there. I used to think that yoga was a waste of my time because I'm all like no pain, no gain.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love it now. And I'll tell you, if I change my exercise from all this, marathon running into yoga, that's when I start to really like my muscles. I just feel so much stronger when I switch that
Mhm.
balance quite a bit.
Yeah, and so I've been doing yoga for years myself. I had to skip it for a couple of years. I was having some lower back problems, which I don't have anymore. So I'm going to be getting back to yoga pretty soon. I've always been my thinnest and healthiest, and just felt my best when doing yoga. And I would lose weight doing yoga, and I think it's
Yeah.
because it lowers your cortisol levels.
Yes, people, they kill it and they bring their gym bag to work and then they go there after work and then they don't have anything planned for dinner. And it's like, if you would have just walked around the grocery store after work and cooked a good meal, you probably would have burned the same amount of calories if that's what your goal is, right? But it's such a stressor, exercises, and people don't realize that, you know, if you're in a constant state of stress, that's not a good thing, whether it be an exercise stressor or, other types of life induced stressors.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I have a question I'd like to ask all of my guests. What do you think is the most pressing health issue in the world today?
I think that um, what doctors are telling people versus what you and I are telling people,
Mhm.
I think that's always going to be such a huge issue because, we'll tell them one thing, but their doctor is going to tell them to go on a statin drug and not eat cholesterol. And they're going to go with the doctor's recommendations. And I think that the whole pharmaceutical drug company, I think that's all just a huge snowball that it's keeping us sick. And I think it's really sad. I mean, there's so many ways I could have gone with that, but I guess that's something that I deal with every day is that, you're telling me this, and I told my doctor what I'm eating, and they almost had a heart attack, and they said I'm going to die of a heart attack. And I just think it's sad.
Yeah, it really is. And it's just, I mean, I think so many doctors go to medical school with the intention of wanting to help people,
Yeah.
and they get snowballed. Just like you
Yeah.
said, they get just fed a lot of bullshit from the pharmaceutical companies for them to be basically drug pushers,
Yeah.
and modern medicine, a lot of amazing advances, but I think
Mhm.
it's so much geared towards selling medical equipment for testing and selling drugs and to keep people on drugs. And then one drug leads to the next. Like my father died
Yeah.
because of the medications that he was taking and the diseases that they led to. Like they
Awful.
start him out on the cholesterol lowering medications, and then that leads to diabetes, and then the diabetes, they get on the metformin and the other medications, and those cause them to get fatter, and then they get cancer from the diabetes medications, and what, because they get more overweight, and it's just this whole kind of cycle that we see so many people on that keeps them buying hundreds and hundreds of dollars of drugs every single month, and it is criminal. It
It is.
absolutely is.
It is.
Yeah.
And then you will tell them that you need zinc or X, Y, and Z, and they're like, they're taking so many medications. And then if you tell them to take a few supplements, they're like, oh, what? It's like, if you want to heal, you just have to take it to the next step and add some of those in. And it's frustrating that they'll trust a doctor to say, take these powerful pharmaceutical drugs. But if you say, take zinc or, whatever it is, they're like, is that healthy?
Yeah. Yeah, or is that going to interfere with my medications? That's really hilarious. Yeah, but it's just very sad, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to just wake people up and just realize the doctor has their place, but
Yes.
you need to. A lot of them don't. Not one person can know everything. So
No,
it's
and I wish that they would just say, I'm not educated in nutrition, so don't ask me. Like, go,
yeah, but
go somewhere else.
Yeah, but they come from this place of authority, and many doctors they don't ever want to admit that they don't know something, or they'll say something And it's said very convincingly when they talk about diet or supplements or whatever it is, or don't do that, that's quackery, or whatever that they're advising their patients. But I think people are waking up and they are educating themselves, and knowledge is power, and that's what the internet has brought to us, and that gift for us, so that people can have a doctor on their team, but have a nutritionist and a detox expert and all kinds of other
Uh,
people on their team as well.
well, that's right. And I'm grateful for your podcast, that's for sure.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. And so, why don't you tell the listeners where they can learn more about you and where they can get your book, The 30-Day Ketogenic Cleanse?
Well, thanks so much. I have a free website with over 1,000 recipes on there at Maria Mind Body Health. Like I said before, my husband lost his job. I understand that everybody's in different economic situations. So if that's what you're looking for, there's a lot of tips and recipes there. Otherwise, I know I'm a bad marketer, but I have on Facebook, I'm Keto Adapted. And there's also the 30-day ketogenic cleanse on Facebook if you want to join that group. That book can be found on Amazon or at Costco, Barnes and Noble, all of those types of places. And I'm also at Maria Emmerich on Instagram if you're on there. So I tease you with my food photos and what I'm eating or what my kids are eating. So kind of
Nice.
tips and tricks that way too.
Great. Well, Maria, thank you so much for coming on the show. This is the second time you've come on, and really always appreciate you coming on and helping to educate us on how to eat healthier. It's so, so important.
Thank you, Wendy, and you have an awesome day.
You too. And listeners, if you want to learn more about me, you can go to live to 110.com. And you can also learn about my healing and detox program, mineralpower.com, if you want to learn how to detox heavy metals and chemicals, which are a huge underlying cause of disease and a driver of disease in our world today. Thank you so much for listening to the Live to 110 podcast.